Module 4. In the US, Detention, Deportation, and Resettlement. This module will briefly go over the steps of seeking asylum in the United States, explain why detention centers exist and what they are, overview policies and their impacts, with a focus on the zero tolerance policy, and defining and fighting against xenophobia. Overview of seeking asylum. As of January 2022, the process for entering the United States as an asylum seeker involves several steps. It's important to remember that immigration policies and procedures are always in flux and may change, so it's crucial to consult with official sources or legal professions for the most up to date information. That said, we do know that the asylum seeking process is full of challenges ranging from language access to financial and social obstacles. This overview of the asylum process is simplified, but there are many ways asylum seekers are at great risk without legal representation. Arrival at a port of entry. Asylum seekers present themselves to a U.S. port of entry and express their intention to seek asylum. Initial screening. Customs and Border Patrol officers conduct an initial screening to assess a credible fear. If they establish that the person has a credible fear of persecution, they are referred to the next step. Deportation, detention, or release. Asylum seekers may be detained or released into the U.S. while awaiting immigration court proceedings, depending on factors like flight risk or public safety concerns. If credible fear is not established, asylum seekers may be deported. Notice to appear. Those released receive a notice to appear, specifying the date and time for their appearance before an immigration judge. The length of time for this can greatly vary. Immigration court proceedings. Asylum seekers attend immigration court hearings to present their case for asylum. Legal representation is advisable, but it is not provided. Decision on asylum application. The immigration judge decides whether to grant asylum. If granted, the individual can apply for permanent residency after 1 year. Immigration detention centers, where individuals await immigration proceedings or face deportation, have been a subject of concern due to reported human rights violations and substandard conditions. As immigration policies change over time, detention center policies also shift, keeping advocates on alerts as reports of deaths, forced sterilization, and neglect continue to arise. These concerns underscore the need for increased transparency, accountability, and comprehensive reforms in immigration detention practices to ensure the protection of human rights for all individuals in detention. But that numerous individuals in detention are seeking asylum amid challenging and perilous circumstances. They have traveled thousands of miles, often on foot through hazardous terrain, fatigued, frequently alone, or with limited connection to family and loved ones, and may be grappling with trauma. Yet they find themselves awaiting resolution in a detention center marked by conditions reminiscent of a prison. The zero tolerance policy, implemented in 2018 as a part of the Trump's administration efforts to deter illegal border crossings, resulted in the widespread and systematic separation of immigrant families at the US Mexico border. The policy, which started as a pilot program in El Paso in 2017 before being expanded, aimed to prosecute all adults crossing the border illegally, leading to the automatic separation of parents from their children. Key elements of the zero tolerance policy and its implementation include criminal prosecution. Under the zero tolerance policy, all adults caught crossing the border unlawfully were subject to criminal prosecution, a departure from previous practices where many cases were handled through civil immigration proceedings. Family separation. As a consequence of criminal prosecution, parents were detained and separated from their children who were designated as unaccompanied minors. This practice applied even to families seeking asylum or those entering the country to escape violence and persecution. Pilot program in El Paso. The zero tolerance policy was initially tested as a pilot program in El Paso in 2017 before being rolled out more broadly in 2018. It marked a significant shift in the approach to immigrant enforcement. Public outcry and controversy. The mass separation of families sparked widespread public outrage, drawing condemnation from various sectors, including human rights advocates, lawmakers, and religious leaders. Images of children held in detention facilities generated intense scrutiny. Executive order reversal. In response to the public outcry, President Donald Trump signed an executive order on June 20, 2018, aimed at halting the family separations. The order called for the detainment of families together, but its implementation faced legal and logistical challenges. ongoing repercussions. Despite the executive order, the zero tolerance policy left a lasting impact on affected families, with many facing challenges in reunification, psychological trauma, and the enduring consequences of separation. Let's pause here for a moment. What you're learning is important but heavy to process. As people who work with immigrants who may have experienced some or all of the challenges discussed here, it is critical that you reflect on how those experiences may impact their willingness and ability to ask for help when needed. Consider these questions and how they apply to your work with immigrants. Xenophobic attitudes create barriers to social integration for new immigrants, making it challenging for them to build connections, access resources, and feel accepted in their new communities. New immigrants may experience heightened anxiety and fear due to concerns about their safety, security, and acceptance in a xenophobic environment, impacting their mental and emotional well being. Xenophobia undermines social cohesion and harmony within communities, fostering division, mistrust, and resentment between immigrant and non immigrant populations, which can have long term implications for societal stability and unity. All of these factors contribute to the experiences of new immigrants and impacts all facets of life, from education to employment and everyday interactions with people. While policies are intended to be unbiased, growing xenophobic sentiment can influence how decisions are made and resources are distributed. Can you think of ways that you have witnessed xenophobia in your community, city, state, or in the country? One of the most important and yet most underestimated ways that can shift the experiences of newly arrived immigrants is how welcoming a new community is. While policymakers and governments should do the heavy lifting of ensuring services, resources, and support for immigrants are standardized across the nation, individuals like you and me can also play a critical role in helping newly arrived people feel welcome and seen. Communities can advocate for and prepare for the humane reception of newcomers by fostering a culture of inclusivity, empathy, and mutual support. This includes promoting education and awareness about immigration issues, challenging xenophobic attitudes and stereotypes, and advocating for policies and practices that prioritize the dignity and rights of all individuals, regardless of their immigration status. Additionally, communities can establish welcoming committees or networks to provide practical assistance, such as language support, housing assistance, and cultural orientation, to help newcomers integrate and thrive in. By building bridges of understanding and solidarity, communities can create welcoming spaces where newcomers feel valued, respected, and supported as they embark on their journey of settlement and integration.